Hey, y'all, I'm Shane Sams, the host of the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. Super excited to be back with you again today to hang out with and talk to another member of the Flipped Lifestyle community. Now, longtime listeners of the program, you know we are all about some online business here on the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast, and we are all about helping real members of the Flipped Lifestyle community right here on the show, and we let everybody listen in so that you can learn more about how you can change your family's future as well. Now, we cover a lot of topics here. We cover online business, we cover membership, we talk about marriage, we talk about parenting, we talk about real life, y'all, everything and all of the above. And today's guest is going to be a very special addition to everything that we normally talk about. About a year ago, I got a message from a friend on Facebook, and he said, "Hey, Shane, you've got to interview, you've got to talk to this guy named Anthony Woolever." Anthony is a Flipped Lifestyle fan. He's a Flipped Lifestyle listener. He's a Flipped Lifestyle community and audience member. But he has a really special story, and I just want him to be able to tell it. I don't want to take this story away from him. I want him to be able to tell it to you. Can I introduce you to Anthony? So I said, sure, let's do a Facebook invite. You know, you add me, add him, and then, you know, I'd love to hear his story. Now, I thought this was going to be another success story, you know, because we have so many people in the Flipped Lifestyle community doing so many amazing things out there with their online businesses. But what came next really hit me and impacted me in a big, big way. When we were introduced, I said, "Hey, Anthony, man, awesome, man. Let's hear your story, man. Let's hear what you're all about." And Anthony said something that I'll never forget. He wrote back and said, "Shane, I just wanted to tell you and Jocelyn that it's because of you and some other people that I did not commit suicide." Anthony went on to tell me this amazing story of how he had gotten to a really deep and dark place in his life. And he had decided that he was going to kill himself. And as he was preparing his house, cleaning it up, packing it up so the people in his life wouldn't have to deal with the aftermath after they found him after he committed suicide, he decided that instead of playing music or something else, he would listen to podcasts. Anthony found Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income podcast. At the time, there were only 122 episodes of Pat's show. And it just so happened that Jocelyn and my episode on the Smart Passive Income podcast was episode 122. And Anthony told me that after he listened to our story, he was filled with hope. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he did have a chance at a better future. In this interview, you're going to find out that we were just the period on the end of the sentence. There was a lot of coincidences, a lot of God things stepping in and helping Anthony to get to the point where he didn't have to kill himself. And now he's living an amazing, productive life and making an impact in a big way out in the world. I had to have Anthony on to tell you this story. Look, I know a lot of people out there right now are struggling and hurting. 2020 was a really, really tough year, and 2021 has not been easy either. The entire world has changed, from the economy to our health and everything in between. I know many of you might be struggling. Many of you might feel like you're in a dark place, or maybe you're having suicidal thoughts. Well, I brought Anthony onto the show and had a conversation with him today about how to overcome those dark thoughts, how to overcome suicide, how to find hope, and how to move forward to create a better future for you and for your family. Recording this podcast was an overwhelming and emotional experience for me. And I know that someone somewhere out there needs to hear this episode today. So I want you to turn it up. I want you to lean in. I want you to listen really, really closely. This is an awesome conversation with an absolutely extraordinary guy. One thing I love more than anything else about the Flipped Lifestyle community is that our community members, our audience members are in it to help and to serve others. And Anthony serves you so much today by being open and raw and honest with things that many people have trouble talking about. Maybe you know someone that struggles with depression. Maybe you know someone that struggles with suicide, or maybe that's even you. Make sure you share this with them. You listen closely, and let's do everything we can to help each other in these trying times. So without further ado, here's my interview with Flipped Lifestyle community and audience member Anthony Woolever. I know it's going to make a difference in your life. Welcome to the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast, where life always comes before work. We're your hosts, Shane and Jocelyn Sams. We're a real family that figured out how to make our entire living online. And now we help other families do the same. Are you ready to flip your life? All right, let's get started. 3, 2, 1. Anthony, man, good to see you. How you doing, buddy?
Good. I'm doing well. Yourself?
We have been trying to do this podcast for too long. I was desperately afraid. This is being recorded right in the middle of the big ice storm in 2021, and I was sitting there. My lake is completely frozen, snow everywhere. We lost power for like 3 days. I was like, no, this has to happen. So by the grace of God, we've got electricity and we are connected together, man. And I'm excited to talk to you today, bud.
I'm as well. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
So, man, just the story, this whole story of how we became connected through a guy named Vincent is I don't even know all the pieces, but I know that there's a tremendous tale behind it, right? And this podcast is going to be a little bit different because we're kind of taking a break away from a little online business stuff. But I think your story is incredible, your mission's incredible. And I just want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, man. Like, what is going? How does Shane and Jocelyn? How does all this flip lifestyle? How does all this fit into Anthony's story, man? So take me back to the beginning, and I'll just ask questions along the way. Does that sound good?
That sounds good. Brevity is not my strong suit, so if I miss anything,
hey, man, you give me 1 minute, you give me 1 minute to tell a story, I'm taking 30. I'm just telling you. So okay. I'm cool with that, man. I get it.
All right, perfect. So my story kind of in terms of how our beginning started would have been the summer of 2014. My now ex-wife and I separated, and it was a very traumatic experience on many levels. And some decisions were made both by her and me that made things very difficult and just put me in a very bad state of mind. I have mental health challenges from my childhood, some physical abuse, emotional, mental abuse, and my coping mechanisms from there were not healthy coping mechanisms in the civilian workforce, but I went to the military where a lot of those coping mechanisms are embraced. The do it my way, the very direct, intense style of communication works well in the military, not in the civilian workforce. So I spent the better part of 8 years kind of reinforcing bad communication methods. And it's kind of taken me through my life. So when my ex-wife and I separated, you take all those previous mental, and I'm a combat veteran. We know the highest demographic of suicides in the world is combat veterans. Or most people know that. So fast forward to 2014, separate. In September 2014, I went to my I decided I was going to kill myself. I wanted to commit suicide. But I didn't want my parents to have to pick up all the pieces. So I went into my basement and started cleaning my basement with the plan to kill myself so that my parents wouldn't have to mess with all of it when I was gone. And I'm not a huge, I like music, but I don't need music, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
But I needed some noise, if you will. So I just Googled, the top business podcast. Didn't like the first one. The second one just so happened to be Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income. And I listened to the first episode at the time, and I was like, I really like this guy. So I went all the way back to episode 1, and I just started listening. And at that point in time, there were, I think, 122, maybe 124 episodes. And I just binge listened 16 hours a day, cleaning my basement, cleaning my house, getting everything taken care of. And there was just something different about Pat that I really appreciated and admired. And he's a friend of yours, so you're well aware of that. And I will eventually get to a cool Pat story from me. So I was binge listening, and around episode, I'm almost positive that you were episode 122.
I sure was.
And just before yours, either right before yours or right after yours, was Jessica LaRue. She and her husband were on there. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had hope. Listening to you and Jocelyn's story. I'm not too far from, I was born and raised not too far from Kentucky. Now I live not too far from Kentucky again. And I'm like, man, if these two people from Kentucky can do this, like, not to disparage anyone from Kentucky, but that was kind of my thought process this time. And you and Jocelyn just made it sound very, very simple. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. So for the first time in a while, and then listening to I think it's Cliff, Jessica and her husband's story, I was like, I think I can do this.
Wow.
It hasn't gone exactly how I'd like, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had hope. So I obviously did not carry out my plan to kill myself.
Thank God, man. I'm glad you're here,
uh,
bro.
I appreciate that. So fast forward about a year and a half later, I was at Freedom Fastlane, Ryan Moran's events at the time, and Pat was there. And my cool Pat story is we were in the aisle getting ready to cross paths, and I'm like, you know what, this might be the only time I ever have a chance to say thank you. So I just asked him if he had a minute. I told him, I did give him about a 20-second clip of my story and said, look, I was considering killing myself until I listened to your podcast. I just want to say, for me and my family, thank you. And it makes me choke up a little bit, but just how gracious and authentic he was. I mean, and you can hear it in how he speaks, but I know famous people, and my celebrities are like podcasts. So right. Pat, you, so it was really cool. That same day I met the guy that would go on to coach me for the next 4 years, Aaron Walker with, Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind Group. Great man.
I love Aaron Walker. Did you hear my podcast with him last week? We just had a new one come out with Aaron.
I haven't yet.
I'll send that one to you. Yeah, man. Okay. I love Aaron Walker, dude.
Yeah, he's an amazing person. So I kind of got to a point with Aaron that in his mastermind, I'm like, I just need a bit of something a little different.
Sure.
Vince's, and I'm part of Vincent's community, has a book called Freelance to Freedom. Gotcha. Runs a online community called Total Life Freedom. It's a very small group of people, and his kind of mission is, as he likes to put it, raise the unemployment rate by helping people transition out of the workforce into kind of working for themselves and living a life of freedom, as he puts it. And it's what I needed at the time. I love Vincent. I love Aaron. Both, wonderful human beings that I've been very blessed to have a part of my life. And how Vincent and I got connected, he was a part of ISI for a while as well, but how we really got connected was, I've always told myself, well, you can't stop eating sweets. Well, when I found out Vincent went the better part of a year without eating, I'm like, let me try this. So I went 502 days without eating sweets. I got down to my almost my pre-high school weight, to give you an idea how thin I got.
You middle school time machine. You jump in the time, go back to middle school, baby. I'm going freshman year, man. I'm not stopping at college. I'm going back, man.
So that's how you and I got connected, is Vincent connected us. Prior to making that switch from ISI to TLF, I found out, I was listening to Christopher Lockhead's podcast. I think it's called Follow Your Different right now. I've not listened in a while. They had a gentleman on there, child psychiatrist named Dr. Jacob Towery, and he said that the newest leading cause of death in girls 8 to 11 and 12 to 16 is suicide. And as a combat veteran, as someone who's strongly considered killing myself, and then having, at the time, my daughter was 5, and to look at this precious little girl and think that she could even think about suicide at such a young age, let alone actually committing the act, it crushed me. And it was what I believe was an absolute God-ordained mission for my life, that I want to see suicide decrease. And right now we talk, we're in the midst of this global pandemic. I would say suicide is the true pandemic. And the reason I say that is, a pandemic is anything that's on the rise in basically every corner of the globe. Well, we definitively know that suicide is on the rise in every single country, especially post-COVID. There was a statistic that Japan just recently, that they lost more people to suicide over a period of time last year than COVID.
Wow.
So it's absolutely a pandemic epidemic, and it needs to change. And my working hypothesis, and the reason I want this to be my life's work, is I believe until we start calling it for what it is, which is, a lot of people want to say I have dark thoughts and things like that, but until you start calling it what it is, the gravity of the situation is lost on family members, loved ones. But when you use the word suicide, it heightens the awareness. It heightens okay, I need to check in with these people. I have 2 great friends right now that I check in, and both of them kind of need they don't need that constant hovering, but they need that periodic check-in. So every couple of weeks, just send them a message. Hey, how are you doing? I did it this morning. Haven't heard back from either one of them. I may not hear back for a couple of weeks, but they know that they have an ear, and that's what I want. I want to see suicide start to decrease. The United States is my first where I'll start doing it, but I'm aware of the global statistics as well. So that's the Cliff Note versions.
Yeah, man. Man. Vincent sent me a message, and Vincent and I weren't really connected before. We were like Facebook. You know how you're Facebook friends with people, and you know everything about them because you see them in your news feed, and you're like, and then your brain like doesn't know if they're actually your friend, and you don't even remember if you met anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, so we were kind of like, it's this weird thing we live in. We were connected, and Vincent goes, Shane, man, hey man, how you doing? I'm like, hey Vincent, it's good to connect. Let's talk a little bit, and he's like, I'm writing you just to tell you about this guy. His name's Anthony, right? And he told me the Cliff Notes version of your story. And I just wept, man. Like, because, like we do, our mission, we sold our business, and our mission is to help people, start businesses. That's the tactical thing that we do. But we've always viewed our mission as just giving real people some kind of hope. And on our paper, on our nice mission statement and values, it always says, hope for a better future for your family, hope to be able to create income, and hope to do that. And, your story really stands out to me, man, because just to even think that God would have made us that episode 122, and as you're nesting for suicide, to even think that we had, I just feel really honored that we were the period on the end of the sentence in those podcasts, and that maybe we just helped you in some way with Pat, with Jessica and Cliff, are amazing people. We know Jessica and Cliff very well too, and Vincent, and like all these people that, God had check on you. That's what it really was, man. It was just like those podcasts, all the stories leading up. Like, I fully believe that like our story is not like the end all be all epiphany story, right? But it's the cumulative effect of hearing the hope of all of Pat's guests, and seeing other couples make it, and seeing other things happen, getting to talk to Vincent, Aaron Walker. Gosh, that guy in your life, like, I've been hanging out with Aaron Walker a little bit more lately too, and like I'm actually going to see him in a couple weeks down in Nashville, and it's like, it's just amazing to hear your story that all those things were put together right when you needed it. And I just can't believe that's an accident. I just can't believe those things happen. Just, I happened to listen to Shane and Jocelyn on Pat's podcast when I was finishing the podcast, and I was about to no, even the bad parts up to that moment led to that moment to allow you to make a change.
The number one thing I'm grateful for is my past. A lot of people, especially in our current society, we have a lot of revisionist history. But I have no desire to rewrite my past. My past made me who I am today. I've made terrible, terrible decisions. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. There are regrets that I have, but I'm grateful for all of it. Because if I can help one person, and I know that I've helped at least one person, avoid making that decision, just like you and Pat and Cliff and Jessica were the catalyst for me to pivot what would have been the ultimate permanent decision. And I didn't know that anything about your mission statement. The fact that hope is really what it really boils down to. And that's
it's all it boils down to, man. Like most, I have a Bible verse that I actually got this Bible verse back in high school because I had a really devastating knee injury, and I lost football, lost my identity, lost who I was there for a couple years, and what got me out of that was a Bible verse. It was Romans 12:12, and it says, rejoice in hope. That's the first part of that verse. And there's two other parts to it. It says, be patient in affliction, right? Because, these things pass. And it says, persevere with prayer, right? And that just became my life verse because it's like none of this starts without hope. And you don't need hope unless something bad is happening. Right. And it's all about hope, man. And that's when we sold our business, it was so what do we do best? We give people hope. If a couple kids from Kentucky can do it, surely you can do it, right? Like that's the whole. I'm serious. That's like the whole. That's the heart of the brand. Is like,
Right.
yo, people, we're a couple kids working full time, had a couple small children ourselves, and had no time, had no money, and we did it, right? So that just to give people like hope, man. But it goes deeper than that. Our long-term mission is even like like marriage is really important to us, which is a part of your story. You know that, like how the effects of a marriage falling apart, right?
Yeah.
And so we're big believers in how do we prevent marriages from falling apart. Parenting is very near and dear to our heart because our story started with the abuse of someone else in a daycare center of our child.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's what made me go into online business. Was we found out that a daycare worker was mistreating our child. They were locking them in it wasn't sexual or anything like that. It wasn't physical. It was mental. They were locking him in a bathroom for hours at a time for punishments of potty training accidents and some deep trauma that we're still dealing with in counseling today. Right. But like that moment, in a weird way, it was the catalyst for everything we've done since then. It was like, I don't want parents to have to put their kids in daycare center. Then that can't happen.
Right.
You don't want people to get to the point where they want to commit suicide. How do we deal with that up front? Well, you call it suicide. You get parents and friends and other people involved to check on people, and you take on the truth. And like if we get rid of our past, we never make it to the future. It's like if you change one little thing in your past, you don't become a suicide advocate. How could you ever become a true suicide advocate other than losing someone or almost losing yourself? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, man. So like, God, I don't even know where to begin, dude. Like, this is like the craziest thing to ever even hear, like someone like say, right? So what happened after? So you go on this binge, you listen to all these stories of people doing cool things and Pat guiding you along the way. Then you hear me and Jocelyn, you hear Jessica and Clay. Maybe you hear a couple, maybe that resonated with you because of the struggles you had in your own marriage or whatever.
Right.
And you're like, dang, I've got hope. What did you do with the hope afterwards? Because a lot of people, I think, get that hopeful feeling, but they don't go that one more step where they actually take action on the hope. That one thing's like, oh, I can do this. Like, what did you do next after that?
Well, I had right around that same time, I was working for a logistics company at the time, and I was right in the process of getting promoted, and that was the salary that they gave me was money that I didn't think I would make in my wildest dreams. So I think the first thing, and it was a position, it was to be an industrial engineer, and I have no engineering background. I'm not an engineer.
Why did you apply for a job to be an engineer when you were not an engineer, or did you just like fall into it somehow?
I was asked to apply for it. I was very respected by my all my superiors. Still great friends with a couple of them to this very day.
It's amazing.
So they asked me to apply. I applied, jumped through all these hoops, got it. So it was kind of like just the perfect timing. So when they gave me that money and I thought, okay, now I have extra money, maybe I can start putting it into some self-development. So that was kind of my next thing is, as I mentioned, Aaron Walker would have been December 2015 is when I met him, he and Pat. So really, I just started investing in myself. I knew about podcasts. I have tons of books, and I just started really diving into it because the first thing I needed was to really fix what was between my ears. I needed to heal. I needed to figure out, how do I process some of this stuff? So it was a lot of podcasts that just continued to share hope. Because I would say probably the first 250, if not 300 of Pat's podcasts were really stories of hope.
100%.
I think now he's a little more business focused, which is great. But those first, it was almost like 300 different people and what they did to make money. Like one of the ladies that he had on a couple of years ago makes money writing about succulents. And I'm like, for starters, I was like, what the heck's a succulent?
Right.
Let alone how you make yes.
Yeah, I know. I've met her before. I met her. We spoke at Pat's event when you could have live events 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually met her. What is her name?
Okay.
I can't remember. But I said the same thing, dude. I go, what's a succulent? What does that even mean? Right? Like, is that a bad word? I don't even know what that means. Like, it was a plant or something, right? Like
yep, it's cacti.
Yeah.
It's,
right. It's crazy.
Yeah. So that I was like, man, people can literally make money doing anything if they just put their mind to it. So as I kind of pulled myself out of that through, like I said, podcast, books, I got rid of a lot of, that was one very important thing for me is I'm not attached to humans all that much if they're not good for me. So probably the most effective thing I did was I went to a conference that same September, and he talked about pruning people out of your life. Like, there's some people you have to quarantine, like maybe you don't get along with your mom or your dad or your sister or your brother. You kind of have to put them in a box and say, you have to stay in this box, or this box represents what we're allowed to talk about. And I had to do that with my family, most of my family. But there were a lot of people that just need to be pruned.
Yeah, man.
People who had been complaining for years and years and years about the exact same thing. I mean, I had one friend. I still love this man to death, but I just could not continue to be a part of my life and be part of his life. And I just told him, I said, look, until these things change, you and I can't be friends. You've been literally saying the exact same thing since we graduated high school, and it's 14 years later, dude. Like, it's time to do something different. So there was a lot of that. And it was hard. And these people I'd talked to daily for years and years and years. But it was very necessary. Then the next thing was hiring a coach. Once I felt like I had a foundation that I had kind of poured for myself, that's when I hired Aaron. And again, no coincidence, just met Pat. And within a day later, Aaron and I had just listened to Pat or Aaron on, it was either Pat's show or Jamie Tardy's show. And I had just that week, I'd literally gone to his website and, put in my information. And so as our paths cross, and I'm not the type to put myself out there. It's as if the hand of God himself came down, put his hand on my head and spun me around. And before I could even think, words were coming out of my mouth. And I saw that big Southern grin.
He does have a big Southern grin. That Aaron Walker does, man. He got a big old Southern grin,
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So he was very gracious. He was going to head to lunch. Hey, I'm going to lunch with some guys. I'm going to go grab them and we'll head to lunch. So went to lunch, and I'm going to miss some things, but he said, do you have any kids? Are you married? And what do you do for a living? So he asked those 3 questions. Question number 4 was, I think, what is your biggest fear in life? Just cut straight to the core. And immediately I said, okay, this is the guy I want to be my coach.
Dude, listen, Aaron, I'll tell the story. I'm not going to tell who it was about, but I heard this. I got a buddy, and him and Aaron went to lunch one day, and and they don't talk much. I mean, they knew each other, but like, it was like, just let's have lunch and get to know each other a little better. We're both professionals. We coach, whatever. Guy sits down. He said, Aaron Walker looked right at him and said, how's your marriage, son? Just straight up, first question out of his mouth, no mercy. And he goes, how are you and your wife doing? Is everything okay at home? And I did just cut through business, cut through everything, because he's like, that's the foundation, that's the core, right? Oh man, I remember when he told that story. It was like, it was just so funny, man, because that dude just oozes wisdom. Like, yeah. Aaron Walker oozes wisdom. If y'all don't know, Aaron Walker has a website. It's called aviewfromthetop.com. He runs a awesome mastermind called Iron Sharpens Iron. And but that dude, man, if there's a guy, he was Dave Ramsey's first advertiser.
Well, I think, and we may have to have this fact checked, but I'm almost positive that Dave called him and said, will you please advertise on my show?
Right. That's we won't fact check. We'll just build the legend of Aaron Walker right here. That's all. Dave Ramsey begged Aaron Walker for that check. He was about to go under, and if he doesn't do that one thing, right, that's how legends start. Right on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Silly podcast by a couple guys hanging out and talking about life. They just random legends start. You know what I mean? So
gotta love it. So that's when my growth, I would say, went from, steady to exponential, just being around, because I was part of Aaron's mastermind. So it was every Tuesday at 4 p.m. for I did it for 4 straight years. I think in those 4 years, I can count on definitely no more than two hands, probably one hand's the number of times that I missed.
Wow.
And it was almost always a family related thing. And there was just a lot of really good guys in there. For the whole time I was part of ISI, I said we have the best group, and based on attendance at the live events, we were always the most well represented. So it was just a really solid group of guys that were wildly encouraging. And then how ISI plays such a significant part of this transition into suicide awareness is it was summer of 2019, because I've always wondered kind of what my suicidal triggers are. In fact, I just had a friend tell me that I oftentimes call it my suicidal triggers or my suicidal ideation, and a person in a very loving way said, you have to stop doing that. When you say you are claiming it as your own, and it's not yours. These thoughts are lies of the devil, and you need to stop claiming it as your own. So I catch myself frequently, and I just did it again. So when I would have these suicidal thoughts, I was never really sure what the trigger was. So July of 2019, it was July 2019. I had a financial situation, and finances are a huge trigger for me. And just a wave of emotion came through, and I just didn't know how to cope. So immediately I went to, I'll just kill myself. And so what I normally do would I kind of run from things, and I decided to lean into my ISI group. So I posted, it was a dissertation inside the group, and I put at the end, I said, I put at the beginning, I'm posting this to let you guys know where I'm at. And at the very end, I said, I do not want to be asked about it. Give me my space, check in on me from time to time, but I don't want you guys smothering me. And a gentleman named Jason Sanders, who runs a real estate business in the Washington, D.C. area, and he's in the Army band, just a wonderful human being. He just so happened to be leading our call that day. And Jason just has just a type of love about him and care and authenticity to where, we run through the entire call, and at the very end of the call, in the most loving way you can possibly imagine, said, Anthony, if you feel comfortable talking, I want to give you time. If you don't, we'll move on and we'll talk about something else. And just the way he approached it kind of allowed me to let my guard down, and I just let it all out. And it was the first time I really leaned into people, as opposed to, trying to do it on myself, being this proud man who can just conquer anything. So it was just a pivotal moment in that growth to show me, like, there are ways to go about this that are constructive and healthy, that don't have, and you don't have to alienate people. So that was kind of the first step in terms of me facing that. And then a few months later, at an ISI event, a gentleman got up there in front of the whole room and said, I have dark thoughts. And again, now that my passion is suicide awareness prevention, we have to call it for what it is. And I knew what he was saying. The whole room knew what he was saying, but he needed to call it for what it is. So he got done speaking, and they kind of passed the mic around. And again, I'm not the type to speak in large groups. And I just felt like God was saying, you have to say this. So I got up in front of 150 men and said, we have to stop calling it dark thoughts, bad thoughts, because when we call it that, we suppress what it really is. And our family and loved ones are not able to help us the way they need to. Because anyone can have a bad day. So, and people have bad days all the time. So if I just say I'm just having a bad day or some bad thoughts, it's nothing. But if I say it for what it is, it just, again, it amplifies it significantly. So I just said, we have to stop calling it dark thoughts. If you're having suicidal thoughts, you need to call it for what it is, call it suicidal thoughts, and let's have a conversation. I'm here for anyone in this room who does this. And afterwards, some gentleman came over and he's like, hey, I want to talk to you in private. And he shared some things in terms of some healing practices that he has heard about. I listened to Tim Ferriss, and I had just listened literally that exact same week. Again, timing is, I don't believe in coincidence, but timing was perfect. God-ordained timing. I'd listened to Tim Ferriss's podcast that week, and I'd heard Tim say multiple times that psychedelics have been like 20 years of talk therapy in a single night. And I recognize that psychedelics in most states are illegal. Um, and I personally at the time had never done an illegal substance of any kind. I've worked for companies that drug tested. I was in the Army. I was, born and raised in kind of the Bible Belt type of thing.
Sure.
So I'm, too good for that type of stuff. So I never even considered it. But when Tim said it that night, and then this gentleman saying something to me about it, I was like, I need to investigate this. I think it would be unwise of me at this point in time. So, so I did go down the path.
And I want to tell everybody out there right now too. And there is massive research being done right now that is unlocking psychedelics for people with PTSD, whether it's MDMA, MDA research, psilocybin. Like this is not fringe anymore. This is the evidence for depression and suicide and end of life situations, like for cancer patients and things like that, is stacking up in mountainous ways to be completely overwhelming. That this is something that may help a lot of people, right? So that's what we're talking about here. This is not some of you may be hearing this for the first time and you didn't say, well, I didn't see the Flip Lifestyle podcast going down the psychedelic bandwagon today, right? But what we're talking about here is totally coming into the mainstream, and 10 years from now, we're all going to look back and go, why were these treatments and psychotherapies not available for people who are struggling with PTSD, depression, and suicide? So that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yep. So maps.org is an organization that
great
that
website
Tim supports. So they are based out of, I don't know where in Denver or in Colorado, but definitely out of Colorado. They've helped Colorado as the first state to legalize psilocybin, which is the medicinal component of mushrooms. And I don't recommend any of this as recreational. I don't use any of this as a recreational aspect.
These are in therapy settings with professionals. Yep. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I've heard so many stories about this from soldiers, like, because I mean, it's just incredible. Some of the, like, one day it just completely flips and their life is like restored. I think people I hate the term, I just want to go back to the way they were before, right? That's not what it means. Restoration can look completely different. And I hear this so many times, dude,
So Colorado was doing some amazing things with the MAPS Institute, and then Johns Hopkins here in the United States has a full psychedelic research department, if you will. And then I can't remember which of the big universities in the United Kingdom. I can't remember if it's Oxford, University of London. One of those big universities over in the UK also has their own research arm. So that's kind of the path that I started going down. And I have done a couple different psychedelics. And January 2020 was my first experience. And when I went into the session, they ask you to kind of set your intentions. And for me, I wanted to experience life as if I'd never been abused. Because I believe life is somewhat of a linear path, and then things happen to us, and we have these little pivots or these little forks in the road, and we do this over time. And my first abuse experience, it was physical nature when I was 9 or 10 years old, and I felt like my life was on this path, and then it just deviated completely. And I wanted to see what it would be like again, not as if it never happened, but
if you could release that block and not have to deal with it anymore. Yes, let it go.
And that's exactly what I got out of it. I still have little things from my childhood I'm still healing through, but the physical abuse is no longer that hindrance, and my ability to communicate with loved ones, with my children, with my ex-wife. My ex-wife and I are closer now than we ever were when we were married. We have a better relationship now than we ever did as a married couple. We love our children immeasurably. We just had a conversation last night in terms of some negative things we're seeing in our kids and how we're going to go about it. January 1st, 2020, no chance of that conversation happening. Yeah. Fast forward a little over a year later, we have a great relationship. And that's true across the board with all my relationships. It used to be, when it was time to move on, I'd like burn a bridge. Like I would go out of my way to like sabotage that relationship so much that the bridge would be burned forever. So I've done a couple different things. And one of the things that has really hit me and that I want to share, because inside some groups, I've kind of asked, just did kind of case study analysis, like who in this group has thought about suicide. And it's staggering. I mean, 50, 75, sometimes 100% of a room will say, yeah, it's me. But if you look at the CDC's website or the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, they'll say 1 in 4, 1 in 10. And I'm like, no, give me a break. Like, there's no way that many people are just going through life okay. You look at the suicide rates among entrepreneurs, among CEOs, among chairmen. It's staggering what these pressures do to us. Where was I even going with this?
Just so many people are out there's more people out there suicidal on a daily basis than the stats are showing. I mean, it's not even. And also too, I always wonder, man, like how many people who follow through with it, it was like maybe they weren't always suicidal, but that day they were. Mm-hmm. And they didn't find the right podcast to listen to, or they didn't find the thing. I always think back about Anthony Bourdain, the famous chef guy who committed suicide. Because I remember that was that was one of the few celebrity deaths in my life where I felt it like a friend, because everybody felt that way about him. Mm-hmm. But like, he was suicidal, and he had talked about his struggle with that, but maybe that day just he didn't have anybody to check on him, or he was in the wrong environment, and that wouldn't be necessarily in the statistics of I have suicidal thoughts, right? And like, we miss those people. And it's so taboo to talk about, like, you know, like we all want to put the front out, like it's the Instagram world, it's the lifestyle world, it's we got to be successful all the time. And even if you are successful all the time, like, you know, we all have to play that game a little bit. And then when you have the day, you don't want to tell anybody that you're having the day, because you're afraid what it will mean. You know what I'm saying? Like how it will affect you, how it will impact you, especially if it's that, like if you're having a bad day of sales, sometimes people will talk about it. But if you're having a bad day, like, I don't want to live, like, you don't want to say that to people. There's a stigma about it. I really am grateful. I'm grateful for a couple things in this conversation. And sometimes I always ask people like what they're going to do next and what they learned. And I want to talk about what I'm learning. You're teaching me right now, man. You know what I mean? Like, you know, one, to surround yourself with really good people. I think that's a really powerful lesson I'm hearing. Like, and you said something interesting about being a man and handling it all and taking it all in. Forget that, man. Like, we can't make it without other people. And if you've got the wrong people, they're just going to drag you down, you know? I think I've always heard your story to the point of you listened to the podcast, you got inspired by some people, and that turned the corner. But hearing you do the work, that's the part of this story that's really impacting me right now, is you did the work. You said, I'm going to put myself in the right place just in case I can be in the right place at the right time. You went and got coaching. You went to the event. You didn't just happen to run into Aaron Walker. You were at the place that you could run in to Aaron Walker. And like, also like how you even circled back and you were like, you know, you had another suicidal thought, maybe with money or something like that. Like, it's not like you're just cured and healed forever. Like, life is seasonal, life is cyclical, and like these things have returned, but you just keep doing the work. And even like with the psychedelics, and like, again, like people are going to be like, what are we talking about today? But like, dude, I'm telling you, through experiences I've had, through experiences my friends have had, through research that I've seen, dude, this is the future of mental health. And being able to have the courage to go against the grain and even try those therapies through the MAPS program and stuff like that, like, that's amazing. And just doing the work is never done. Like, that's the thing. You're not cured from suicidal thoughts. You're not cured from bad days, but man, you can just put in the work, and you've put in the work, dude. And that's inspiring. And I know there's somebody listening to this out there that may be suicidal right now, and they may think, wow, I've got a little hope. Wow, I can do the work to improve this, because Anthony did it and other people are doing it. And that gives me hope too, you know?
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that. One thing I definitely want to touch on is some people may think, well, I don't have anyone in my life like that. Well, everyone has access to it. Most people live near a library. Go get a book, let the books and let podcasts like this one Smart Passive Income. Vincent, he runs again, Total Life Freedom, just a quick podcast, 5-7 minutes a day. You can listen to it on any drive to any work. You can listen to it walking, across your yard. Just little quick snippets of encouragement. Let those people be your coach. Let those people become your mentors. Tony Robbins oftentimes talks about it, how before he had Jim Rohn in his life, who was his mentor. It was books, not podcasts at the time, but so we all have access to those things. We just have to be willingness to acknowledge where we're at, and then take action on those things.
Yeah, man.
There was one point I was going to make a few minutes ago when I was talking about kind of the entrepreneurs and the experience with suicide. And I would not consider myself an active entrepreneur right now.
That's okay.
I was kind of faced with a decision last year. Do I continue to pursue this and try to work through my mental health struggles that it's a daily thing. Or do I pivot and kind of work for someone else and force myself, when you're working for someone else, if you have to be there at 7 a.m., if you're there at 8, you're going to get fired. So I've kind of grown and healed through someone else's paycheck, basically, versus an entrepreneur, especially when you have those bad days, when you have those sometimes bad weeks, it becomes more and more difficult to force yourself out of bed. Or sometimes you get out of bed, you wait till the wife and the kids are gone, and then you go right back to bed, or you're a sloth all day long. So one thing that I've really been kind of coaching people who come to me with some of these things is it's okay to take a step back and to go back in the workforce to kind of reevaluate things. But if you are not, especially if you're not providing for your family, if you aren't doing the things you say are, and you're living this lie ultimately, then that's just going to be a negative feedback loop, and it's going to be very, very difficult to yank yourself out of that. So for me, it's been a much better decision and transition. And one thing I encourage people, if you're in that state and you're a bit uncertain with where your entrepreneur journey is, to go ahead and take that step back, go get a W-2 job.
Yeah, man. Amen, dude. Don't force the square peg in the round hole and end up doing something you're going to regret and everybody around you is going to regret.
Yep.
That's great wisdom, dude.
So and I think the fact that this has been a year in the making, a year next month since we first touched base, I think
seems like 5 years because we've been trying this forever, over and over, man. Like trying to get it. Hey, listen, man. Even all the miscues that we've had getting our schedules lined up, either me missing or you missing or whatever. Maybe that was so God could get you right here to right now, where we could have this conversation correctly, and that wisdom is out there. And, hey, it's not just about being an entrepreneur. It's about, flipped lifestyle means you live the life that gives you hope and peace and perseverance. And you're not constantly in that state of darkness or suicide. Dude, you made, and flipped lifestyle at its heart is all about choices. That's what I always tell people. That's what the up and down arrow means in our logo. Yeah, that's the reason we picked that is because we all have choices. It's just a reminder whenever I look at our logo, okay, I have the choice to do this. I have the choice to do that. We have the choice to run this business. We have the choice to run that business. We have the choice to work for someone else. Where is peace? And where is hope? Where are my kids? Where is my spouse? Where are my friends? It's okay. It doesn't matter what you choose. There's no pressure. We're just trying to give you choices. And that's what you're talking about here too, is just, you made a great choice. Look at the choice. I mean, dude, you look awesome. You're sitting here. I know if you're not watching this on YouTube, you're sitting in your car, you're smiling big ear to ear. We're having a good conversation. It's even though we're all trapped in ice storms all over the world and everything, it's just happy right now. This conversation might not flow that way a year ago. So God just said, hold your horses, fellas. I want y'all to wait before you talk. You know what I mean?
Well, I just had the information I just shared in terms of the entrepreneur's journey and mental health. I just had that epiphany back in December. So that's brand new. And, and I'm all for entrepreneurs going out and making their own living. I was very, very blessed in 2020. I doubled my income in 2020. And, Lord willing, based on the trajectory I'm at with the company I work for, there's a good chance I'm going to double my income again this year. And that's going to be that's going to be life transformational money for my family and I.
Usually, man, what I find, Anthony, is just picking a path is the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you choose the path, like you talk about your story, how you were forced down off the path with a bad situation, trauma. Like that's not good. Like we gotta get back on the path and choose the path. And really the path doesn't matter. Is it the right path for you? Are you, if you want to start a membership or if you want to start a business, you want to work for somebody else, when you pick a path and you have agency in the path and you've chosen the path and you're all in on the path, that's when great things happen, right? Mm-hmm. It's when we waver or some, car T-bones us off the path. Like that's the problem, right? That's where we need other people. And I tell people this all the time. I love your story because it's so people centric. Like all these other people entered your life, and Joss and I will say this until our dying day. If we had not put ourselves around other people, like we flew to San Diego when we didn't have enough money to do it to meet Pat. Right. Wow. We went to, we were running out of money. We didn't know what we were going to do. All our sales had stopped and we flew. We were like, all right, he's having an event. Let's go meet him and let's go. We one time we spent almost $30,000 going to ClickFunnels headquarters to meet Russell Brunson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we did it. And I was like, we're doing it. We're going all in. So we got to meet all these great people. We got to connect. Every leap in our life has been because of people we met. And putting ourselves in the right place at the right time so that those people were available when we needed them, and like that's why we focus so much on community. We call it the Flip Lifestyle community because our main goal is to put people around. We're actually going to launch Iron Sharpens Iron style mastermind in Flip Lifestyle. Aaron, that's why I'm working with Aaron right now.
Did you join his kind of coaching mastermind, the mastermind blueprint? I think it's what it's called.
I'm all about paying people to speed up. Hey, listen, I'm buying gas pedals. That's what I'm buying with my money, right? Like I want gas pedals. So as soon as I decided this is the way I wanted it, because I know what Iron Sharpen is because I've talked to Aaron about it, and I got a really good friend named Scott Beebe. You know him? Scott.
Oh, yeah, no, Scott.
Yeah, Scott. Yeah. So like Scott's a great guy too. He's got a brand called Business on Purpose. If y'all want to check him out, but he I've seen inside it enough to know what's going on in there. And I've always wanted that next level of community inside our thing. So I decided last year to do it. I was like, we're going to have something like this inside our community where people can join masterminds. Because I know that when you connect people, great things happen, especially when you connect good people. Right. And like, I want to help people average out to the 5 people they're most hanging out with. And that's kind of like my mission for that. So yeah, we're gonna do the same thing. And I'm all in on Aaron's thing. I'm going down there to see it. And Aaron was going to make us I wanted to be an affiliate for his program, and he had talked about like putting the thing together and giving it to me. And I'm like, nope, I'm giving you the money. I'm buying it. I'm not gonna let you give me this course because if I don't put my money on it, if I don't put my money where my mouth is, and I don't buy in, I won't cash in, right? Because people who pay attention. So I bought the whole thing. I just paid him for it and said, I'm doing it. I'll pay whatever it takes. I don't care. And but I'm about halfway through it right now, and we're gonna launch something like that in May. Because look what it did in your life, And I've seen what just our community does in people's lives, and so we need to like surround ourselves with those people, And
I would definitely, I would highly encourage you to talk to Vincent. I love how Aaron did his mastermind, and I love how Vincent did his. And Vincent's kind of subtle twist was pretty profound. So I would highly encourage you to just bend his ear a little bit. Like, hey, what's your perspective on mastermind groups?
Yeah, man. I need to get him on my other podcast too, because me and him have talked so much. I've talked to him more about you than me and you've talked about you. Right? And yeah, man, it's just amazing, dude. But listen, we could talk forever. I don't know what you got going on here, man, but I just wanted to, I've really been looking forward to this. It blows my mind, dude, that, like when we started our business, we had kind of achieved this weird holy grail, right? The proverbial passive income business. I mean, we had people would join and they would download resources, and we just posted on social media. And it was like, that was what our original business was. And when we decided to tell our story, it was mainly because we had helped a friend start an online business. and we just thought that'd be
Mhm.
cool. And of course we had so much fear when we first started it out. Like, I was afraid what my family would say. I was afraid to share the money we were making because we don't come from that kind of background
Mhm.
or that kind of community. I was afraid. I was just afraid. I remember being really afraid of what people would think about us in our personal life. I knew it would change relationships. We had a lot of fear, dude, when we launched Flip Lifestyle. And, I hear stories all the time of it's kind of weird hearing that you help people start a business, you help people change their life,
Mhm.
or it's just weird, dude. I'm from Kentucky. I was coaching high school football on Fridays, man. I didn't know what I was doing, but when I heard your story, man, I was like, it's just amazing to even be. I feel like I'm 10% of that story, and Jocelyn's 10%. And just to know that the choice that God put on our heart to tell our story, to try to inspire other people, and that affected you in that way, even to be 10% of that story, And I always want to give people so much credit, like, because they won't give themselves credit. Like, you made the decision not to do that, right? To not commit
Mhm.
suicide. So it's all you, man. Like, and God put the right people in your life to give you a little bit more strength to kind of push you over the edge. But I'm just really grateful, man, for you, and that you shared that back to us, because man, it's like, it helps me have the courage to keep telling our story and keep looking for more people. And if we have a bad day, or we have bad sales month, or we have something else, man, it gives me the courage to keep telling our story. And now I'm going to tell your story. I'm going to probably tell your story everywhere I've ever been in my life. Like, anybody I ever hear having a bad day, but let me tell you about Anthony now. Sit down, pull up a chair. We got the campfire going, and Shane's going to tell you a story. And I
I'm
just
gonna
want to
need
encourage,
royalties.
dude, man. Listen. I told this story on a Pat's stage, and me and Pat did a webinar together, and we were talking about you on air, by the way, one time.
Really?
Yes, I swear. I was like, Pat, have you heard this story? And he was like, yes, I remember that, dude. And like, we didn't even know, we had never talked about it together. And we were just on a webinar, and we started talking about it one day.
I
And
had no idea.
yeah, it was totally random. It wasn't planned, and like, it wasn't a slide. Like, hey, let me tell you about Anthony. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't what's going on. Where's I go? Oh yeah. So I tell this story on stage, and I told this at Pat's event, and I tell it everywhere. But it's my favorite anecdote I've ever read. This reporter was interviewing Mother Teresa. You ever heard this story about the ripples? You ever heard this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So she was telling Mother Teresa, like, do you really think you can change the world alone? Right. And we all think we're going to change the world and we're superheroes and all this stuff. Right. She goes,
Mhm.
she like looked back at him, and she laughed, and she leaned down and picks up a rock, and she says, no, I do not think that this little woman from wherever she was, can change the world. But what I can do is I can cast my stone out upon the waters and cause many ripples. And man, that has always stuck with me so hard. Like just me going on, like Pat telling his story
Mhm.
knocked me off a lawnmower when I was listening to that podcast, and realized that I could do something online. And his ripple hit me. And then his ripple hit Jessica and Cliff or whoever, right? And then I picked
Mhm.
up my stone, and I went back on Pat's podcast, and I threw my stone, and then our ripple hit you. And
Mhm.
then your ripple gets into iron sharpens iron. And that one day, that one guy that really needed to hear you say that, when you got up in front of the crowd and said, stop calling it dark thoughts, it's suicide. You need to tell everybody what it is, and so we can help each other. He needed to hear you. And
Mhm.
now and then that guy's going to go throw his stone. And then that other guy who knew this therapy that you needed came and threw his stone and hit you. And man,
Mhm.
that's what it's all about, man. It's just all about the ripple. It's all about community. It's all about helping each other. And you just don't even know who's listening to y'all tell your stories half the time, guys. So you better be telling them. The only thing that'll get us all, Anthony, is silence, right?
Yep.
That's what can't happen. And anything, whatever our mission is, whatever our passion is, silence is the only thing that's going to hold you back. And I just appreciate you for not being silent. You didn't even tell me. The ripple of you telling Vincent got to me, right? And that's how we finally got back together, man. So like, it's just all about telling our stories and all about being together. And I'm just thankful for you, man. I appreciate you so much.
Very grateful for you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey, you got a Bible verse here that you wanted to share. You were telling me about earlier. It's called Romans 6, 13. What is that Bible verse? And like, why is that a important verse for you? I shared mine earlier. We got Romans covered today, baby. We got the book of Romans covered. I got Romans 12. You got Romans 6. So tell me about Romans 6, 13 real quick.
So the meaning behind it means a lot more to me now than what it did when I got it. So I have a pretty large back tattoo. You can go to my Facebook page and you can check it out. I think we're Facebook friends. Right. But I have a very large back piece. And at the top of it says Romans 6:13, which is use your whole body as a tool to do what's right for the glory of God. I'm not sure which translation that's from, but I read it in Rick Warren's Purpose Driven Life 20 years ago before I went to Iraq. And the verse was after, have you read Purpose Driven Life by any chance?
I have, but it's been 10 years, whenever, it's been a while.
So there's a story in there about a missionary in Africa who would get up and run every morning. And his sister, after he was doing this period of time, would kind of scold him. You're wasting all this energy running instead of using that energy for the glory of God. And he said, I feel God's, and I'm paraphrasing, but I feel God's glory when I run. So I believe when God has given you a gift, even if it's a gift to enjoy by yourself or a gift to bless others, that it's a disservice to our relationship with Christ and to one another to not use that gift. So for me, Tommy Breedlove, another great friend, he talks about the gift of life, the gift of death, and then the gift in the middle, the gift of when you find your life's purpose. And for me, it's a gift to recognize what all the trauma that I've experienced is to be used for. So for me now, use your whole body as a tool, not just my physical body, but the mental anguish that I've experienced as well is going to be used to allow young boys and girls to grow up with a mom or a dad that may have made a permanent decision to kill themselves. And I hope my story can prevent people from making those decisions. So that's what that verse means to me now is I'm going to use my entire story to bless others in the way that Christ has blessed me.
All right, guys, that wraps up my interview with Anthony Woolever. Man, I tell you what a great guy. I am so happy that he is still here with us. And I'm so happy that he is on fire with a mission and he is out there making a huge impact in the world, trying to help people who are thinking about or close to committing suicide. I've told this story here on the podcast before, but one of my favorite stories in the world is this story about Mother Teresa. A reporter asked her, do you really think that you can change the world alone? And she picked up a stone, looked at him and laughed and said, no, I do not think I can change the world alone, but I can cast my stone out upon the waters and cause many ripples. And man, that's what community is all about. That's what online business is all about. It's about picking up your stone, casting it out upon the waters, letting your ripples go out and hit other people and having an amazing impact on others throughout the entire world. That's what happened when Pat Flynn started his podcast. He started telling these stories and impacting people. That was picking up and throwing his stone. That's what happened when we went out and started telling our story on Pat's podcast, on Forbes and other people's podcasts, everywhere we've ever told it. We were just trying to pick up our stone, throw it out, and let it ripple out and impact people all over the world. And that ripple hit Anthony right when he needed it most, so that he didn't do the unthinkable. And now Anthony, with hope, with passion, is out there picking up his stone and throwing it out upon the waters. And he's letting his ripple go out and he's helping save people as well. So whether it's in your business, in your community where you make money and you help your community members and you help the people in your membership grow, whether it's on social media or in real life, we want to encourage you to do whatever you can to go out and cause an impact in the world. There's nothing like an online business, nothing like a membership site to cause massive ripples all over the planet. Now, normally I pitch the Flipped Lifestyle community right here, but I'm not going to do that today. If you need to learn more about anything that we do here in the Flipped Lifestyle community, head over to flippedlifestyle.com and check it out. What I am going to do is to encourage anybody out there who was touched by Anthony's story, who maybe got a little bit of spark of hope from today's podcast. but might be down in the dumps, might be having those dark thoughts, might even be, let's call it for what it is, having suicidal thoughts. I want to encourage you to reach out and get help. If you need to talk to somebody, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you can get help that you need. All you have to do is call 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. And you can call to talk to somebody, and you can talk to somebody that can help you today. That's a toll-free number. It doesn't charge you a thing, and it's available to anyone in suicidal crisis or emotional distress. 1-800-273-8255. Call that if you need help today. All right, guys, that is all the time we have for this Flipped Lifestyle podcast. We'll be back with you next week. Going to be back on track with one of our normal topics, helping a real member of the Flipped Lifestyle community start, build, launch, and grow an online business. I hope that you loved this podcast today. I hope it encouraged you today. I hope you share it with somebody that might need it. And I just want to thank Anthony again for being on the show, being so transparent, and being an amazing member of the Flipped Lifestyle community. That's all the time I've got for this week. Until next time, get out there, take action, have hope for a better future for your family, and do whatever it takes to flip your life. We'll see you then.